Shalom. Welcome to the Messianic Hour with Rabbi Scott Sekulow. The Messianic Hour is a program designed to give you insight into the Jewish roots of your faith. Rabbi Scott is also here to answer your questions and help you gain a deeper understanding of Bible prophecy. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Scott Sekulow.
Shalom and welcome to another edition of the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. The show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. I'm glad you're with us this week as we get ready to continue in the story of the birth and sacrifice of Isaac. And then we're also going to be looking at the Feast of Purim that's coming up just a few weeks from now. And I'm here with my wife, Judy, as we bring to you from a Jewish and Gentile point of view. And Judy, what do you have to say today?
Hello.
Hello.
I love it when you throw things at me and I'm just supposed to respond.
Yes, you are.
Just shows that I'm human here, right? No, we're excited. We've got Purim in 2 weeks. Going to have a big carnival here at Beth Adonai.
Right.
We hope if you're in the Beth Adonai, Atlanta, Metro Atlanta area, that we have some people who travel to see us every once in a while. We've had some of our virtual members travel.
We had a virtual member this weekend from South Carolina come on down.
So that's great. Really exciting when they travel to come see us. And Purim would be a good time because we're going to have a carnival that afternoon. And we've got inflatables and games and
cool prizes.
Yes.
Cool prizes.
On the Beth Adonai Facebook page, you can see Rabbi with his blinky LED well, they're not sunglasses, they're just glasses, but they actually match your sweater, which is, we tried really hard. Yeah, with that sweater, it's pretty easy. It has everything in the rainbow in it.
That's right.
So, and then, after we get past Purim, we are a month, oh my gosh, a month away from Passover.
And they can go ahead and sign up for our Passover Seder. We're going to have two of them, Friday night and Saturday. Why don't you tell me about that?
We're having Friday night, okay, now you throw it at me and I completely lose my train of thought. March 29th, that Friday, we're having a Seder that evening here at Beth Adonai. And Saturday, March 30th, we're having the second one. It's a community Passover Seder. We do four courses. You have salad, soup, entree, dessert. Rabbi leads us through it.
That's right.
And this year, we're actually doing something very, very special. Because we say we're here to reach the lost and educate the found, part of education is also equipping.
Right.
And if you're not equipped, it's hard for you to, do things. So not only do we want to educate, we want to equip. And what we're doing this year as part of our Passover Seder, there is a cost with this, is you will leave with a Haggadah. Your Haggadah is your order of service. It's what you go through, leads you through the service. It's interactive. That is included in the price of your reservation.
Because it's supposed to be done at home. Actually, the first night of Passover is on the 23rd.
25th.
25th,
It's that Monday.
It's that Monday. And so people can go and should celebrate at home, but this way they can learn about it, and they'll then be equipped to have it. You can go to our website, and there's a link on it to take you to our congregational website where you can sign up for it, and it's a great opportunity. If you can't make it, you can also help someone who maybe can't afford it. You can donate a spot as well, so that'll be a great blessing. So check that out. Again, the link over there is at rabbiscott.com. While you're at our website, remember to sign up for our newsletter. You get a free gift, the book, I Have a Friend Who's Jewish, Do You? And a prophecy card just for signing up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after these messages.
We are the Joshua generation. Let's rise up and take a stand.
Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. This show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. And we are going to be looking this week at continuing the situation with Isaac and how he relates to our Messiah. We spoke last week about his birth and how we see great resemblance in that. And now we're going to look at the sacrifice of Isaac. And I think we have to really start leading up to that, where we see that God calls Abraham to sacrifice. It's interesting, he says it's his only son. So we realize that in God's eyes, the son that he has chosen is Isaac, not Ishmael. And they go on a how many day journey? 3-day journey.
There's a lot of threes.
There is a lot of threes. And when God says something 3 times, it means take notice. That it's very important. So we see a 3-day journey, just like we see Yeshua in the tomb for 3 days. And technically, in the eyes of Abraham and his wife, Sarah, their son was dead. Once God said, you're going to have to sacrifice your son, he's dead. So we see him being dead for 3 days and then basically being raised from the dead on the 3rd day. So you have that connection.
Another shadow.
That's right. And also, here's the big thing is how old was he when this happened? Because many people have this image of him being very young, maybe 12, 13, or 17, or 7. In fact, he was probably 30 years old.
So he could have taken down his dad if he wanted to.
He definitely could have taken down his dad, because his dad was an old fogey when he had him, so...
What a way to put
well,
it,
he was.
honey.
He was, over, 110 or so. I think he could take. Now he's 140 years old. I think he could take him down. We know he could lift the firewood, but what we see here again is this connection pointing towards Yeshua, and that he becomes the sacrifice. So we see here too the idea of Isaac being the ultimate sacrifice for his father Abraham. We know Yeshua is that way as well.
Well, I think you also, though, there's a journey, but this journey is going to a specific place.
That's right. And that place is?
Moriah.
Right. And it's interesting, too, that when we see the faith of Abraham, as when he's going forward and Isaac starts asking him, where's the lamb? His father's response is, God will provide. And so we see this connection that Abraham understood that, God's going to provide the sacrifice, even if it meant his own son's death, that we also understand the idea of resurrection as well.
Well, I think that the interesting thing here is Moriah was an early name for Jerusalem.
Right.
And it's interesting, though, that it's only mentioned as Moriah once in this whole chapter. And rather than repeating the name over and over, the Lord ended up substituting the word for ha-makom, or the place, when he referred to Moriah. So we know that here Abraham's going to Moriah. He's going to, quote-unquote, sacrifice on Moriah.
Right.
There's another whole shadow here of the temple that's going to come, sacrifices that are going to come, and then ultimately the sacrifice of Messiah.
Well, and Judy, I always like to bring this out too, is we know that when at Yeshua's death, they put a crown of thorns around his head. Where was this at? That would have been in the same area in which the ram gets caught by the thicket, the crown of thorns around the goat's head as well, around the goat's horns, is how he gets caught in this. So there's a lot of parallels that we see going forward.
Well, there's also it's starting to be called the place. Well, the place is the place where you meet God.
Right.
And it's where you can kind of meet God in one of the most intimate ways. Think about the Holy of Holies that was in the temple. That's where the presence of Adonai rested. Well, we know, jumping ahead just a little bit, that Abraham goes to this place and he's going to sacrifice his son.
Right.
But we know that an angel appears.
Right.
And there's something interesting with that.
There is. But, we also talk about the faith of Abraham. I always say I want the faith of Isaac, because
Isaac had to have known what was going on.
he knew what was going on, and especially when he was bound up and he put him on the altar. Abraham knew he was coming down from the mountain. Isaac did not. But yet he had the faith in God not to move or do, again, coming before him without any fighting or trying to break free, but was willing to follow God's plan, knowing that he had so much faith in the God of his father and how his father had raised him, that he was not afraid of what was to come. So why don't you talk about that angel that appears right at the last millisecond?
I know. Well, can you imagine Abraham standing there with the knife about to plunge it and gets told, stop. Sure, he breathed a sigh of relief
I
on
always,
that.
I always think it's interesting that the angel called out his name twice. If it was me, he only had to say it once. I would have not been mistaken.
Well, and we see here this angel of the Lord, and we know that Abraham had seen him previously in this parsha when he entertained the 3 special guests in his tent. And we see in Genesis chapter 22 that he's got a special mission again, but he has something that's really interesting. He says that, let me see here, the angel demonstrated his omniscience when he told Abraham, "For now I know that you fear God."
Right.
And again in 22:15 through 17, he says, "By myself have I sworn, said the Lord, for because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I will surely bless you and greatly increase your son, your offspring." How many times do we just kind of read through that verse and blow through it?
Many times.
And sometimes it just takes like a light bulb going off and you go, whoa, wait a minute. This is why we have to be very careful with the Word of God, because there's so much in there that you just can't think, okay, that's just a prepositional phrase. He says, "By myself have I sworn." Why would an angel swear on himself?
He can't. You can always, if you're swearing, there's always something that's greater than you that you're swearing to.
So I think we really see that this leads us to believe that this angel wasn't just an ordinary angel, so to speak.
Right. He was, again, we see him
He-
as a precarnate of Yeshua, the only face of God that we can see and live. And that's a key thing to remember. That's Yeshua's face was the only one that we could see and live. And here we have another example. You had it first when he came with the other 2 angels, and he recognized him as Lord. And then here at this situation as well.
It's really interesting. I want to read real quick what one of the rabbis says about this. It says, Rabbi Nasai also shares this opinion and writes concerning this angel, "I perceive from the 17th verse that no created, but only uncreated, the angel of the Redeemer, which is the same, the angel of the covenant, could bless and give promise. Hence, he considers that this angel is no other than God himself." Like
Right.
we said, Messiah in a form that can be seen.
And this really goes on to how they see him in the Zohar, the writing to the rabbis, that he is Messiah. That this angel was a precarnate of Messiah. And those were from traditional Jewish rabbis. That
Right.
you just
The
quoted from.
Zohar is a very respected source in the rabbinic
Right.
world.
Now, it is
And-
Jewish mysticism. We got to be careful with that. But
And it's generally widely accepted among Orthodox Jews and in their viewpoints. So this is a very interesting, again, here's another kind of unveiling, so to speak,
Right.
of Messiah in the scriptures.
So we've seen him with the birth of Isaac, now in the sacrifice of Isaac. Obviously, we haven't brought up the major points that we see the sacrifice of Isaac representing the sacrifice of Yeshua. Abraham's first only son, God, Yeshua, his only son. Where Abraham did not have to sacrifice Isaac, God sacrificed his son so that our sins could be forgiven once and forever. Not saying that sacrifice was done away with, on the contrary, but we see that the ultimate sacrifice took place, and that's really what we see, a beautiful picture of this and how he lived his life from there on. And that's really what this is all coming down to, is understanding how we see the parallels of our Messiah together.
It's all about Messiah in the Torah and being able to share that with your unsaved Jewish friends.
And so I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, you can mail us at mail@rabbiscott.com. We are now on Twitter, so if you want to follow us there, it's at Rabbi_Scott, and join up and be a part of it. You can ask questions there. You can comment. We throw some stuff out there, so it's a lot of fun. Check that out. Check out our website. Remember, we are a listener-supported show. You can support us right there online. You can also plant a tree in Israel as well. So check all that out at rabbiscott.com. We'll be back right after this.
Jerusalem, if I forget you, fire not gonna come from it.
Welcome back to the Messianic Hour, Man, as we celebrate another part of our show, as we get into the spirit of the music. Good job, Joe, as our producer likes, and we like that song too. It's a lot of fun. And as we get ready, we're coming up to a very special holiday, one that's a lot of fun. Kids love it because you can dress up as godly characters from the Bible. We give out candies, and we have groggers, and we get to boo in service and make noise. And we had the carnival. It's lots of fun. And it's all because of the feast.
Of Esther.
Because Esther and...
Because Esther was obedient.
That's right. And Haman was not. Boo. And
I don't think it works when you boo
you can't boo yourself, I know.
No, that
but
doesn't
you didn't
really
do
work.
it, so I had to. We had to have like a boo machine. But we don't
really?
have that.
That's
all right.
Okay, all right.
So
How
why
about
don't we get
this?
into the spiritual aspect, though, of this feast?
Well, we all know the story of Esther. You know, we talked about it last week. You know, you got a little fun, you make a little noise, you have some food, you get a little rowdy.
Typical Jewish feast. They
Go
tried to
ahead.
kill us. We won. Let's eat.
I knew that was coming. And I do believe last week that we mentioned that Esther is the only book in the Bible where God's name is not mentioned.
That's right.
That God is kind of veiled throughout it. But you know, I don't want us just to look at this as, you know, a time to have some fun and get a little rowdy. I think we need to look and not take it just from, oh, that happened in the past. It has no, you know, really spiritual applications to us today, because it really does. And I think if you look at Haman.
Boo.
All right, last
See,
time.
I wasn't going to do it because I thought
Well,
you
know,
you gave
you
me that
never
look
know
for
with
24
you.
years of marriage. I know that look.
Hope everybody saw that. Yes, I stuck my tongue out at it.
Yes, you got to go to YouTube or Vimeo or one of those places and watch this.
So I think what we need to remember is that Haman kind of embodies all these evil inclinations that exist. We see greed, we see envy, we see a murderous spirit, we see revenge, lying, all of this. And you ask, well, what is the spiritual implication for us today? Well, I think if we look and go to Ephesians 4:31, what does that say? It says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, violent assertiveness, and slander, along with all spitefulness. Because Adonai knows that if we have those things in us, that it's going to lead us down the path of unrighteousness. We're going to become like Haman. And I think we need to realize that we all have these Hamans in our life. We all may have a problem with envy. We may have a problem with jealousy. We may have a problem with anger.
Right.
The question is, what do you do with it?
And how do you handle it?
And how do you handle it? Are you like Haman, and it ends up, you know, you end up swinging from the gallows dead?
Right. It becomes an obsession.
Or do you let Adonai deal with you with these things? Do you work to correct these things in your life? So you really kind of have a choice. And that's kind of what this tells us about with this. You know, how are you going to confront these things? Are you going to run away, bury your head into the sand, hope it disappears? Are you going to fight against it? Are you going to blame God? Or are you going to give in? And James 1, verses 13 through 15 says, no one being tempted should say, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, and God himself tempts no one. Rather, each person is being tempted whenever he is being dragged off and enticed by the bait of his own desire. Then, having conceived, the desire gives birth to sin, and when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death. We see that evidenced in the life of Haman. And Ephesians 5:15 says, therefore pay careful attention to how you conduct your life. Live wisely, not unwisely. Use your time well, for these days are evil. So it really says, how do we overcome these Hamans in our life? Look at, there's lessons from Esther, and that's what I want to talk about.
Can I bring one thing
Sure.
too, Judy? That we have to realize Haman, too, comes from a very unique line, that of the king of the Amalekites and Agag, who Saul was supposed to kill out the entire family, but because he did not, we now have Haman. So this is what happens also when we don't follow God's word. This can come to generations later, can still affect us as those generational curses go on.
But I think we can. There's about 3 lessons that we can learn from Esther. One is that God sometimes uses armies and can use these flashy miracles in order to rescue his people, the parting of the Red Sea. But he's not limited to just that. He can use one obscure person, male, female, slave, free, Greek, Roman, as long as they allow themselves to be an instrument. So it can only take one person to stand up. Rosa Parks stood up. It takes one person. God can use us just like he used Esther wherever we find ourselves, no matter what the nature of the situation is. And the other one is that serving God and fulfilling the role that he has called you to do is possible, even in the environment where it feels like it's impossible. Even where maybe everybody around you is a heathen, everybody around you is following the world. Look at Joseph. And Joseph got thrown into the dungeon. Right. Esther's living in the king's, harem for all practical purposes. Daniel got thrown into the lion's den. All of them faced what we would see as insurmountable odds, right. But God was able to use them.
Right, because Esther would have not been allowed to go before the king. If you did that unannounced, the penalty was death. And yet she took that stand knowing that God was with her. Even though, again, God's not mentioned, we see him all throughout the story.
And we can learn, if you look at Esther's personal journey, what did she do? She was confronted with a situation. We know, first of all, she got godly counsel from her uncle Mordecai. We see that she fasted, she prayed, and she prepared herself in order to act. She just didn't say, okay, God, here I am, take care of the situation. She actually had to choose to act in this situation also. And I think if you want to start this process, if you go to James 1:22-24, it says, don't deceive yourself by only hearing what the word says, but do it. You can't just name it, right, claim it, and it's going to happen. Right. You've got to do what the word says. You've got to take action. It says, don't deceive yourselves by only doing what the word says, but do it. For whoever hears the word but doesn't do what it says is like somebody who looks at his face in a mirror, who looks at himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what he looks like. So you've got to take action with this. And then in Ephesians 4:22-24 says, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. And we see Ephesians 6:11-17, put on the whole armor of God. Right. And now that's just another whole show, right, because everybody has the perception that, this is a Roman soldier, and we feel that's totally... Maybe we'll do that next week.
We should.
You want to do that next week?
That's a good one. I love
about
that
the
one.
armor of God and what it really should be.
Is it a Roman soldier?
That's right.
Stay tuned.
So we can do that next week.
Yes.
So put on the full armor of God, and we'll talk about what that looks like next week, and be prepared to act. And God gives us specific ways to act in his word. Always fall back to his word. That's what you've got to rely on. And know that if you're following his word, he's going to be with you. If you're facing a situation where you don't know what is it, how is it going to turn out, you've got to be prepared to act. We can't just sit around doing nothing and expect God just to work through the situation. He expects us to do our own part.
Right. We do our part so he can do his. And when we don't do our part, he's still going to do his. But
he may just find somebody else who's a little more obedient.
Or the consequences is that we're going to pay for it down the road, as we see here with this situation. Saul was supposed to kill him. He didn't. And because of that,
now
he almost wiped out all the Jewish people because of that one man. Makes a difference, and that's where you have to see that. And I really want to encourage you, visit our website again, rabbiscott.com. We got a lot of great information there. You can check out us on YouTube, Vimeo, GodTube, the iPads, the Droids. We have our apps on there. So there's no excuse not to catch us. You don't have to just wait to be on the radio. We have our apps there so you can listen and see the show anytime you want. Remember, we are a listener-supported show as well. You can sign up for our Passover Seder there at the website. Check out our weekly Shabbat service. Until next week, this is Rabbi Scott
And Judy.
saying shalom and pray for the peace of Jerusalem.